This episode introduces one of the local staff members we worked with during our time in Gandoca, Jairo Mora Sandoval, who sadly died in 2013, 3 years after we met him.
We will be recording a special episode in his memory at a later date.
Oh hey, I'm Emily and this is my best friend Rachel.
Hey, I'm Rachel, and in 2010, aged 18 and fresh out of secondary school,
we went on a gap year, travelling to 5 countries in 5 months.
Shockingly, it didn't always go so well. We lost passports,
ran out of money,
jumped out of aeroplanes,
and landed ourselves in endless ridiculous scenarios.
But what we also managed to do is write a blog about our experiences.
And without smartphones or Instagram at our disposal, this blog is the only record we have of the trip of our young lives.
And 11 years on, we're reliving it all by reading back over our diary entries for your listening pleasure.
Welcome to the Gap Year Diaries podcast. Hello. Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Rachel. Hi, listeners.
Hey, Emily. Hi, listeners.
Hey.
Repeating.
Hey. Welcome to episode 3 of the Gap Year Diaries podcast. Woo. Yes. That was a good hype sound. How are you, Rach? How have you been this week?
Fine. Yeah, not too much to report, if I'm honest. Just a week. I mean, I have just had 5 weeks of holiday since in Thailand. Have I mentioned I live in Thailand? Has that been drilled in enough in this podcast so far?
I thought you were down the
road. Because it's the new year and I'm a teacher, the school holidays are more in April time, not the usual July and August from a Western calendar UK perspective. So I've just had 5 weeks off, and we were back at work on Monday yesterday, and then we had a day off again today due to a public holiday of one I could not name you what it was, but that's how it's been. Just quite quiet, really.
I'm really
due to all the restrictions.
I'm really in favour of having 5 weeks off, 1 day back at work, and then a day off to recover. I think that sounds like really quite sensible, to be honest. The amount of times I've could have done with that in my life. We've had the holiday blues. We've had a little bank holiday here.
Yes,
maybe
you
it's
have.
a similar vibe to the Thai one.
I really don't think it is.
Highly unlikely, but they fall at the same time. Well, good. I'm glad you've had your little day off to recover from your day on at work.
How's it going, Em?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Nothing quite.
You're the only other one I can talk to in this podcast.
Who else would you be talking to? I mean, it's not quite as high octane as your stuff. Obviously, we've had a bank haul. I've been doing some serious, very, very 2021 vibes. I've been hanging out with... so I recently moved back to London after having left because of COVID reasons. I've recently come back, the homecoming, and so I'm living in a different flat, and for once in my life, Rachel, I've lived in London for probably about 4 years now, on and off, and I have not once met my neighbours. Not once, even though I live in
that's true.
Yeah, you live in a flat or a flat with other flats directly above and below you, and somehow you just never leave the house at the same time as your neighbours. But that's all changed because I now have made neighbour friends, and we've been hanging out, as I said, very 2021 vibes. We've been hanging out on the fire escape at the back of our flats, which is lovely but not great for people that need to use it if should a fire break out. But we are adhering to COVID regulations but flouting fire safety regulations.
So, as a recap on last week's podcast, we learned that my passport was not lost. It was stolen from a locked locker in Casillosis in San Jose, and we had to trundle off to the police station, and we had quite a difficult time getting the passport reported, but we managed it, and we got back to the hostel for Emily to find that the padlock again didn't work. So all in all, it was just quite a tricky day. But the thing is, I am now travelling without a passport from San Jose down to Gandoca, which is where this blog is going to take place. So this blog is all about travelling to Gandoca Beach in Costa Rica, which is on the Caribbean coast bordering Panama, where the leatherback turtles are, which we're going down there to conserve the turtles. We're going to be reading that didn't ask to be conserved. How this is going to work is
themselves. Sorry.
How this is going to work is Emily wrote this blog, so it's in Emily's perspective. Emily will be reading the first half and then I will be reading the second half. So again, any eyes that you hear me speaking, that is in Emily's perspective. But anyway, this blog will be about our first day down to the Gandoca Beach. So all about our travelling there, our arrival, and then the first night work. There we go. And that's our scene.
Okay. All right, I will begin reading. After an early start this morning, Rach and I found ourselves casually hanging out in the hostel kitchen, packing up a highly nutritious breakfast, brunch, lunch, general daily food ration of Pringles and Mediterranean herb crackers. This done, we cracked on with our intense day of travelling, making our way from our beloved, if slightly shabby hostel in San Jose, deep into the coastal jungle to Gandoca Beach's sea turtle conservation site. So, the first thing to just give a shout out to is the Mediterranean herb crackers.
I still love
remember
those. Yeah, because I still eat them.
Where do you get them from?
I don't know, but I remember.
Supermarkets.
I remember them being like crack to us. we loved them.
Every time we went to the supermarket, the Automercado, we literally bought like about 5 packs of these friggin' crackers. And like that was just what we subsisted off for most of our lives.
Bit of cheese, bit of material, that on the buses. You know,
yeah.
They were life.
They were life. They were our fuel. Like a high-class mirage, the woman from the Costa Rica Language Academy who had ferried us around a few days before to and from the embassy to attempt to sort out passport traumas, dressed as though she were attending Ladies' Day at Ascot, was waiting patiently outside the gates for us to clamber back into her car and promptly whisked us off to the bus station where we were to board a bus to the coastal town of Sixaola for 6 delightful hours. That is such a long sentence. I was like, surely this will end soon. But no. She was actually the woman who I identified as the best person we met in the very first episode, even though we famously didn't meet her. So this was also our first long distance bus of the trip. And by the end of this trip, we were absolute bus bosses. I think you'll agree. Like, we could absolutely kill a long bus journey. Like, we knew exactly what to do.
Our sitting skills were incredible as well.
Our sitting still skills were honed and refined. Sitting quietly. And this one was a 6-hour bus, which I think at the time felt ludicrously long, but by the end of the trip was a mere blink of an eye compared to some of the journeys we did.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And when we say bus, also it's important to note that we mean more like a school, if you went to a school in the UK, if you didn't, I don't have a frame of reference for you, but if you went to school in the UK, it's kind of like the coach that you would take to a school trip. That's really right, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they'd be really comfy. They'd usually have like footrests. Sometimes they'd have, in fact, no, I don't think they often had aircon. Oh no, sometimes they did. I don't think this particular one did. But
sometimes a TV if you were lucky.
Yes. Oh my God, the things that got shown on those TVs. Oh, amazing.
But this one, I think this bus was a bit more rickety, this first one.
Oh, do you think this was more of a rickety one?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, no, I was about to say something that you were just about to go on and say. On
okay. Bus. I'll proceed. Okay. For the most part, this drive was fairly pleasant, interspersed only with a small and gratuitously angry man demanding to see our tickets literally about once every 10 minutes, lest we could somehow have leapt off the bus and swapped places with a ticketless hooligan in between time. Ridiculously, during one of these more than frequent checks, I failed to locate my ticket and spent so long scrabbling around in my bag that I was eventually dismissed with a bad-tempered grunt and wave. That was fun. That man was just like, this was his job and he was going to do it, even though he knew that we had tickets because we were the same faces that he'd checked tickets for. Like,
yeah, we were
10
not
minutes previously.
You know, we were not inconspicuous, were we?
No, we were quite easy to pinpoint. And like, obviously he did this to everyone, it wasn't just us, but it's just like there weren't enough people on the bus for him to have like forgotten who he hadn't checked tickets for.
I actually think that is the most times I've ever been checked on a bus for a ticket before. Like in any other destination or place I've ever been to, it was so often. It was quite frustrating, really.
Yeah, and then for somehow during like the 1 second I didn't have my ticket in my hand, he was like, "Where is it?" And I was like, "Oh my god, can we just remember 10 minutes ago when you saw it?" And he was just like, literally stared at me for such a long time while I scrabbled around, but to no avail.
I was like silently praying, "Where's the ticket? Oh god, what have you done with it? You haven't moved."
Absolute idiot.
But I couldn't speak because I was the one that didn't have my passport, so I just kept quiet.
Luckily he didn't ask about the passport, but had he, it would have been a different story.
That was a real worry though, actually, on that point, because I was travelling, thankfully not through borders, but I was travelling passportless, which was a bit frightening. But, you know, we pressed on and we eventually did get there.
We didn't let it hold us back.
No, we didn't. Can't hold us down.
It couldn't hold us down, even being sans passport. But yeah, Rachel's passport, just to give a bit of context, which I don't know, you may or may not need this in, but Rachel's passport was with the embassy. We had like finally managed to actually access the embassy and get them to process the documents, and they were like in the process of making her an emergency one. So she didn't have one on her, but it was being manufactured, I think.
Yeah,
it's probably
the lost passport was probably on the black market somewhere. So that's where. Or we
maybe
were.
It was in a drain because it was of no use to anyone. Who knows? As the journey wore on, we began to pass through more and more rural scenery, much of which was seemingly uninhabited. This caused a slight seed of worry to sow its way into my subconscious, as we had been told to get a taxi from Sixaola to Gandoca Beach itself, a mode of transportation which appeared very much absent from what we could see out of the bus window. Do you remember that feeling? Oh my god, it was quite intense for me, but I am such a worrier in general. But
yeah,
I was like,
it didn't affect me as much. I thought, well, we'll get there.
You were absolutely fine just listening to your iPod.
A little iPod shuffle.
Your little shuffle. And I was like obviously staring out the window like, oh dear.
I was like, nah, we'll be fine. Like, we have a destination, we've paid for this, it will all work out.
Yeah, because this had all been organised by the Costa Rica Language Academy, who that beautiful woman embodied. So we were kind of like, we were told what we needed to do, but I was just like, I can't see taxis. I haven't seen one in a while, and where we were going was very rural. Like it was very sort of in, I don't want to say in the middle of nowhere because it probably wasn't, but it was very like
sort of a little bit like road to nowhere feel.
Yeah. It was very rustic, and yeah, it kind of felt a bit like a road to nowhere, although hopefully it was a road to Gandoca.
Maybe that's why I felt so okay. I was like, this is where I live normally, road to nowhere. It's okay.
I live in the middle of nowhere in a rural setting. This feels like a home from home. Yeah, could have been. But yeah, so we obviously had to get the bus to a town called Sixaola, and then we were supposed to get a taxi to the actual sea turtle conservation station. But yeah, I obviously was like growing more and more concerned. But you can only sustain concern for so long, and obviously this journey was like 6 hours long. So after a while I was sort of like, well, I guess this is just life now. So yeah. When we eventually arrived in Sixaola, my fears were not allayed as we alighted next to the Panama border, standing in a dusty dirt track, surrounded by my bags and a cellophane encased pillow that Rachel had for some reason insisted on buying on a recent trip to the mall. Rachel, I've never asked you this, and now seems like a good enough time. Why did you buy a pillow for our trip to the coast to conserve sea turtles.
It's not much of a groundbreaking reason. I just like a good heighted pillow. Okay, I'm not someone that sleeps with two pillows. I've never been able to do it. It's a single pillow with a certain. Do you remember how many pillows I just took out from the shop and just like rested my head on and put back and went dismiss them? No, they can't be too flat. They can't be too puffy. They have to be just firm with a little bit of bounce. That's a perfect pillow. I need that to sleep well.
Seeing nothing vaguely resembling a taxi in the surrounding area, we decided the best thing to do in the circumstances would be to stand still and argue. It's always the best thing to do. And so we did. After a few minutes of this, disaster struck as a panicked Rachel yelled, "Crap, I left my sunglasses on the bus." This was followed by a few choice swear words from me as I watched her flee from my side, leaving me to protect about 6 bags and a frickin' pillow from some interested looking bystanders, completely by my famously weak self. Luckily, after much overdramatic gesticulation and death-defying running in front of the departing bus, Rachel's sunglasses were retrieved, and no sooner had she returned than a kindly man cruised over and asked if we were looking for a taxi. Relieved, we confirmed that a taxi was indeed what we were desperately wanting. He seemed to acknowledge this, but then just wandered off, leaving us alone and confused by the roadside. I remember you running in front of that taxi, and literally you were like, I don't know what went through your head, but you were obviously like, I need to communicate that my sunglasses are still on this bus, because that's, obviously super important to stop an entire giant vehicle. And I think you were like, obviously you didn't know the word for sunglasses in Spanish. And so I remember you just obviously just plucked the first vaguely Spanish word that was in your head. And I remember you going, "Stop, mis sombreros!" You were just screaming, "Sombreros!" at this bus. And I was just watching on, holding this fucking pillow and all the bags. And I was like, wow, we have arrived. But you did get them back, to be fair.
I can sometimes see that now from your memory more than I can my own. Just like me, just like da 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 da, running off and like gesticulating wildly behind a reversing huge bus as well, like shouting nonsense at it,
ridiculous,
waving my arms nonsense. Wildly. Pour you at the side of the road with 6 bags and a freaking pillow.
I know. I was like, wow, great. And obviously there were 0 taxis around, and I was just a bit like, okay, I don't really know what to do. That was a time when, like, obviously that's one of those moments where you just sort of think like, right, what is my next move here? Because if there's no taxis, I'm not really sure how we're going to get to the place we're meant to be. The bus was literally just, as we've described, leaving, so we couldn't even like, I mean, what we should have done is ask the bus driver rather than asking for your glasses. But I mean, to be fair, sunglasses are quite important when it's sunny, but I
was so
you
frightened to leave them alone.
I know you were. Leave them alone.
It just shows like how differently our headspaces were at. You were actually thinking the next step of the journey. I was like, damn it, my sunglasses, I need them back now. Just left you.
And you just ran. You just literally just legged it. And I was like, oh, right, okay, bye.
Down a hill as well, like a small hill. I remember that as well. I'm surprised I didn't fall over.
That would have really added a great extra trauma to overcome if you had fallen over.
Oh my god.
And yeah, then there was this man, bless him, who literally just like obviously saw that we were like lost and confused and stupid and just came over and like kindly like asked us if we wanted a taxi, which I thought was very sweet of him and real good insight into our like bemused heads. And then obviously he like, of course there was a bit of the language barrier because I could speak a bit of Spanish, as we referred to on the last podcast, A-star GCSE, but obviously like as a ringing endorsement of the British education system, that A-star GCSE can only take you so far. So yeah, this guy was like kind of acknowledged that, yeah, okay, we need a taxi. And then he kind of just walked off. And I watched him walk off, I remember, and I was like, oh no, that was our one chance. And off he goes.
I had a bit of a different feeling when that man came over and asked for a taxi. I felt very exposed and vulnerable in that moment. I didn't quite trust his intentions, and that was the moment I felt a bit fearful. Whereas you were like, what a kind man. I was like, I'm quite suspicious of this situation.
Weird
like,
how we like
why is he...
I love how we never have the same mindset at any one time. We're always like two sides of a coin. Like one of us is freaking out and the other one's like, la la la. But yeah, I do remember like putting all of my faith in this man. I think it was just because of lack of other options. And like he did seem like a sweet man. And I was like, I'm going to trust you because I have no choice but. And yeah,
I had that feeling as well, just with like I just had this funny, maybe because of what happened with my passport, I don't know, but I didn't like it. And again, I was searching for the more adult but anyway, so but I got my glasses back, everyone.
But thank God.
That was the achievement of the day.
we didn't know where the fuck we were or where we were going, but we had protection from the sun's rays for our eyes, so that's the most important thing. Okay, I'll continue. What felt like half my life later, I'm so bloody dramatic in all of these vlogs. I love how I just can't just let things be. I'm just like, it was half my entire life. It's like, it wasn't half my entire life.
It was like a few minutes, wasn't it?
Literally. What felt like half my life later, the man returned with some highly jovial individual driving a pickup truck. As much as this could have seemed like a well-seasoned recipe for mugging / general advantage taking, in the absence of any other options, we slung our bags and general crap into the back of the truck and clambered into the sweltering cabin. So yeah, we literally just were like, right, well, we've got to just take a leap of faith here. Like, I mean, it's awful looking back because obviously now we know that those men were literally just being absolutely lovely and kind and extending.
I would just reading your blog there. You said we slung our bags. No, what I remember is he picked up our bags and put them in the back of that truck, and we looked at each other as if to say, well, we have no choice. We better go with where our bags are going.
Oh, right, okay.
Sort of kidnapped our bags. And I remember it being like this quite like dusty truck. It was one of those open trucks. And I thought, I've never driven in the back of one of these before. And I felt really quite shaken.
I had driven in the back of one because my dad has always had trucks because he's a landscape gardener.
No, I remember the time feeling very sped up.
Yeah, it was weird.
I remember the time feeling very sped up and scared. Yeah, I just thought, oh my God, where is this man? I have no idea who this is. There was no name. I don't know where we knew where he was going. But he seemed to have a plan. And I just thought, well, better trust him. So dangerous looking back. But
I also have no recollection of telling him where we needed to go. But I presume we absolutely must have. Otherwise, he would have had no idea where he was taking us. But I presume at some point we did tell him where we needed to go.
I think we did.
We were about to read about it, Rachel.
Yeah, there we go.
Here we go. A few minutes of stunted Spanish conversation followed, which consisted mainly of the driver of the truck yelping, "Vamos, Gandoca!" I remember that. He did it like once every 10 seconds. Oh, bless him. We were then casually stopped by the most lax passport control I've ever encountered. 2 Hawaiian shirt-clad men waving at cars in the middle of the road. As we have all come to know by now, anything involving passports for Rachel has recently turned into a massive language barrier-permeated ordeal. And after my flawless explanation of El pasaporte robado fell on deaf ears, it sure was a strange but welcome blessing when a pair of Costa Rican wannabe gangsters rolled by in their ride and flawlessly translated the whole sorry situation for us. Like, do you remember that?
Yeah, like because I thought, where did they come from? Just these
Well, where
heroes
did anyone come from in this situation? I know. Literally, like, so many people coming to our aid in this, like, a short space of time. We, like, were stopped by these 2, as I said, Hawaiian shirt-clad guys who were presumably passport control because we were at the border with Panama. And I think we must have had to cross into the border briefly to get, like, onto the right road or something. Yeah, so I think technically, Rachel, we've been to Panama for about half a second. And these guys were like, obviously, like, wanted to see our passports. But of course, Rachel didn't have her passport. I tried to explain it. And then these 2 just like absolute like young Costa Rican Casanovas were like rolling by in their pimped out ride. And they just like spoke really good English and just translated everything for us. And I was just like, oh my God, this is like amazing. What a coincidence.
They were saviours. They were saviours.
They were
all
saviours.
wonderful.
But then
and they didn't even need to
unfortunately-
do it. That was the other thing. They had no
they
reason
didn't,
to
but-
stop and help us, but they did
But
anyway.
Rachel, I think they had
Yeah.
an ulterior motive, because the next line says, just as we were thanking them profusely for their help, they suddenly began to hit on us in Spanish. A peculiar way to try and work the moves, we thought. So yeah, I don't know if it was.
I think I just remember thinking, oh, they were very friendly. Again, just completely different mindsets. Like, oh,
well, maybe
they're
because
sweet.
you don't understand any Spanish. Maybe you were like, oh, they're just
maybe
they're just telling us like to have a nice journey. But no, they were like, trying to get us to come out for drinks with them, and I was like, we're clearly in the middle of something. Like we're in a truck. Like, could you just chill for a sec? Oh dear. Anyway, happily trundling along a dirt track over hearty potholes and string bridges, the heat from the sun slowly melting the plastic covering on Rachel's pillow into my leg, we spied a large family waiting outside a house by the roadside, waving the truck over. After an indiscernible conversation between them and the driver, they proceeded to clamber into the back of the truck with our bags and settle themselves down. Once they were dropped off, we had only to stop for a large iguana sunning itself in the middle of the path, which had to be forcibly shooed away by the driver with an angry yell. That was fun.
I remember seeing that large iguana. It was like a couple of meters long. It was the longest reptile I've ever seen. Outside of a zoo, and my first thought was, that's a child's toy. Someone's just left that in the middle of the road. Like, I didn't clock that it could have been real, because you don't see that. You don't see those sorts of things. And
well,
I was
certainly not in rural Essex. You don't see that, but in
No.
Costa Rica you do. But no, yeah, it was
No.
really amazing. I agree.
So Emily has finished reading the first half of the blog, so I shall crack on with the latter half. Again, it's written in Emily's perspective. Okay. After about another 1,000 hours, again,
AKA about 15 minutes.
1,000 hours. We rocked up at what looked like a beach, but could see literally nothing that vaguely resembled a conservation centre, or indeed other people. Tired, hungry and overheating, we asked the driver if he had definitely taken us to the address we provided. He insisted that he had. This discussion went on for several fractious minutes, interrupted only by me deciding to ring the language academy who had organised the journey, and then realising there was no signal available whatsoever, until the driver sighed, flopped himself back into the cab and drove us about 5 minutes further down the road to some kind of deserted bar. Presently, a portly man in a G-Unit t-shirt bawled out and casually informed us that the conservation station was about 50 metres from where we had just pulled up. Then we found ourselves jolted suddenly backwards by the jovial driver, reversing at high speed back down the path. I leant over to Rach and growled, I bloody hope he's not going to reverse the whole fricking way. Of course, though, this is exactly what he did.
Oh my god.
Wow, I remember G-Unit and his little vest.
I mean, all I can say is, again, not all heroes wear capes, but some wear G-Unit t-shirts, and that is what this guy was wearing, because if he hadn't have popped out, we'd have had no idea where we were, because the truck driver clearly didn't know where he was, but this G-Unit man just, again, saved our lives.
Yeah, he knew
Overdramatic,
he knew
but-
what was up.
He really did. I mean, of course he did, because he lived locally and knew that there was a conservation centre just 50 metres from, presumably the bar that he ran. Obviously he was all about it. But again, another saviour. Another saviour in a long list of saviours of this day. That is so funny about him reversing the whole way. I have such memories of that. And we were just he did it so with such force as well. We were just thrown backwards in the seats, back up.
I remember
All the way
finding that
down the
really
track.
fun. I felt like I was at a theme park. Woo!
Again, opposite ends of the spectrum. I was obviously quite pissed off about it. You were just loving it. But I love how he was just like, clearly the truck driver was sick and tired of like ferrying these stupid children around, and he was just like, let's just fucking reverse them up to where they need to go, kick them out of the truck, get on with my life. Get out.
The turtles have you now.
Yeah, literally. But I mean, it probably wasn't the journey that anyone had planned for us, but you know, it worked. We got there.
Yeah, we literally did get there.
Yeah, we actually did get there.
Once we had eventually located the station and been met by Christine, one of the staff members from the conservation station, we were given some more concerning news by her. We didn't actually know you guys were coming. You can share a room with Abby? And lo and behold, we were shoved unceremoniously into what can only be described as 2 bunk shelves in the corner of someone else's shed. After being left alone, we settled down on our bags and wondered what on earth would become of us next. Oh my gosh, right. I remember seeing that sort of spidered shed with the fan and looking at the mosquito-covered bed frame and feeling like, oh God, is this it? I'm so hungry. I'm so tired. I need a shower. I feel boiling hot. I don't really know what I was going to expect, but I just remember really missing a hotel room at that point, which I know sounds really horrible and ungrateful and also stupid. We were right by a beach on a conservation centre. But I do remember feeling a bit like, wow, okay, we are all with nature now. Like, this is going to be it for like the next month. It was a bit of a daunting feeling. Do you remember how you felt when you rocked up?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, obviously, this is as good a time as any to kind of describe the conservation centre. Like, it was obviously it was on the Caribbean coast. It didn't have, I was going to say it didn't have electricity. I think it had some electricity. I think it had like a generator, but it wasn't like, you know, electricity that anyone could use at any given moment. And it had compost toilets, and the showers were rainwater showers. I think it was like an eco, like one of the early kind of iterations of like an eco vibe. Which obviously we grew to love as we settled ourselves in there. But
we loved it at the end. We didn't want to leave.
No, we absolutely loved it. But I think, like, yeah, just getting there, and we'd had such a stressful time, I think it was a bit of a shock to the system. And also, like, well, what was playing on my mind more than anything was the fact that no one bloody knew we were coming. And I was like, well, A, that explains why we had to hitch a lift with this random truck driver to get here. And B, I was like, oh, Christ, like, how is that going to work? Like, but I mean, bless them. They really made space for us. They factored us in.
They did.
Because I think for the volunteers that they are aware of, for the volunteers that are supposed to be coming, they obviously have like a sort of induction for them and like put them on the rota and, you know, show them around, stuff like that. But because none of that was like, no one knew that was happening. They were just like, oh God, what are we going to do with these 2 like random like British girls? I don't know.
One of them has a pillow. Again. Where do you think she is?
One of them has brought a pillow with her. But they were just like, okay. So this girl Abby, who I can't remember if she was so there were staff members, like people that worked there, and a lot of the staff members were also like local people who lived in the nearby village, and then there were also volunteers who were like obviously like us, just from around the world, and there were also some like long-standing volunteers, and I think Abby was probably one of those. Like, she'd been there for quite a few months. And she obviously had her own like little, I think shed is a bit mean. It was more like a hut.
Yeah, it was just a wooden, wooden structure.
Yeah, a wooden structure.
It became very homely. Apart from
and it
dampness.
had these convenient bunk beds in it for us that we were given as our very own.
The landscape of the conservation centre we were at, it was a couple of metres away from the beach. The beach had like quite dark sand. I remember that. It wasn't like white paradise looking sand. It was like proper dark sand. And you just had lots of shrubbery, wooden structures. Things were very much outside, out in the open. and it was quite small. It wasn't massive. And then you had this little bit, didn't we? Remember the communal area that was almost underneath the, I think just the generators and the water tank. And you had hammocks where you could just read your books in the day. And the kitchen was outside. And I just remember as well the humidity. Someone had said it was 100% humidity, and the humidity would cling to your skin even after having a shower, and you dry off and be like, oh, I'm immediately clammy again.
It was very humid.
Yeah, so humid. And that transpired to sleeping, because you just went to bed just constantly clammed up, and the fan just did nothing. And then you'd be very sandy and very damp sleeping in those. But it was really cool, because when you would brush your teeth in the morning, you would watch the crabs, on the sand on the outside. That was fun. That was special. It was rustic living, but it was really cool, basically, to sound really lame, but also you got woken up by howler monkeys in the morning, which is obviously incredible, but a howler monkey sounds literally like we didn't know what it was at first. I think even though I've been woken up by howler monkeys before, as in now I have been woken up by howler. Oh right, sorry. I was like, when before? Before school in the morning in Essex.
Even though I know what it's like to be woken up by howler monkeys now because of this experience, I still in my head have the sound of ooh, 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 ah, 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 ah. That kind of jungle sound that you learn from computer games and stupid sound clips. That is not how a howler monkey sounds. If you Google it, just if you have a second,
just Google it now.
Howler monkey. Google it now.
Ask
do it
Alexa.
now. We'll wait. We'll literally put some silence in. It literally does sound like a sound that comes from the innermost core of their being, and they literally just yell at you woo! It's absolutely terrifying.
We thought somebody was being killed when we got here. It was a bit of a shock to the senses, but the orchestra of sound of the orchestra of the jungle sound was stunning. And I remember even just down to the smell of the rain outside and the smell of the damp that was everywhere. Really painting the scene
sweet
here.
Damp smell. No, but it was its own kind of special. We're incredibly lucky to have that experience. Incredibly lucky.
Yeah, and, I remember it so vividly. After a panicked conversation as to how we were ever going to show our faces outside the shed again, Rach and I decided to make the best of a bad situation, and so headed cautiously over to the dinner area in the vain hope that we would not have to sit surrounded by a fog of anxiety on a lonely table. Dinner was rice and beans, something we came to learn would become pretty much the main feature of our lives over the next few weeks at the conservation centre. Luckily, a sprightly young Dutch boy by the name of Elias decided to take pity on us at the dinner table, and so our time was spent chatting to him and comparing English and Dutch culture. And we were the new kids rocking up, hey, hoping somebody would sit next to us. I remember feeling so outside of my comfort zone as well. The homesickness really hit at that point.
Yeah, we were the new kids that no one obviously knew were coming or had expected to arrive. But yes, I felt for once we felt similar. I was it felt very uncomfortable, didn't it? Because you were just obviously we weren't no one was doing anything, no one was being mean to us or anything, but obviously you just felt a bit oh god, are we just in the way? Are we an inconvenience? And you were we're here with the best intentions, obviously want to help, but are we just people are just kind of trying to do their jobs and we're just bobbing around and they're just oh god, these two English
under
girls
their
are
feet
here.
And I remember being so hungry and kind of just hoping that I would like the food, and just feeling a bit fidgety and uncomfortable in myself. But Elias, shout out to him. Rice and beans and rice is thank you, Dave Ramsey.
Loved. Why are you shouting out Dave Ramsey?
So the one particular listener will know why. Carry on.
Okay. Right. Sorry. Dave Ramsey is one of Rachel's idols. If you know, you know.
That's all we need to say.
But yeah, the rice and beans, I can still, when you can remember a taste.
No, absolutely.
I absolutely, like those, when you were hungry at the end of the day, when you'd done like a hard shift does make sense, a hard shift, those rice and beans tasted so good. And I remember they had like egg mixed into them. So they were a bit like egg fried rice in a way, but obviously with beans.
After a while, they got tasty.
Yeah, at first you were like, okay, rice and beans, cool. And then it was like the next morning, it was like rice and beans. You're like, cool, yep, okay, rice and beans. And it was like lunch, yep, more rice and beans. And you were like, yeah, I see a pattern emerging. But like, obviously, if you eat something enough, I liked it initially, but I really grew to love it towards the end.
I think we craved it. We started to really crave that specific taste.
I still do. I wish I could, and I will never be able to recreate the taste of how they tasted it from the conservation station.
Didn't we also have plantain as well?
Yes, we did.
I feel like we had plantain. Yeah, that was.
We did.
delicious.
Yeah, they made plantain chips for us, which was so good.
Plantain.
Not just for us, obviously for everyone, but yeah, the chefs were like so sweet, and the plantain chips, yeah, they were amazing.
Oh yeah, the
Absolutely
kitchen
amazing.
lady was wonderful, so caregiving. I remember her little son running around as well with his little tricycle.
Yeah, she had a little.
Oh
my god, he comes up in the
boy.
vlogs. He took a shine/murderous tone towards me.
Oh my god, didn't he want to like kill you in certain ways? He kept asking what it was like, how many ways he could kill you.
So he would love to sit with me in the hammock. He would love to come and sit with me in the hammock and like we'd just chill. And then he'd start just talking to me in Spanish about all the different ways he'd kill me. And I was like, this is unsettling, but I sort of didn't take it seriously because he was about 6 years old, but he was a sweetheart, but obviously he had murderous plans for me.
Presently, Rach and I received our turtle saving training, and then we were sent on our merry way to our first night patrol. Emily, I do want to give a shout out to something I learnt on this that I still remember to this day. So what would happen is these lovely leatherback turtles would remember the beach that they were born. So then they would migrate back to that exact same beach, and they would come up at night. So they're dead at night, they'd come up, and then they would dig their little hole, and then they would give birth to about 30 or 40 eggs. And they would be in
different eggs. Were you about to say some chicken, some ostrich, scrambled, poached?
Well, our job was to catch the eggs and put them in a secret hiding space to protect them from poachers. But when the turtle was giving birth, it would be in a stupor, so it wouldn't be too aware of its surroundings. And that's a point you could go up, you could measure it, collect the eggs, and it was fairly relaxed. And then it would lollop back down into the beach, and off it went. And anyway, what I learned was the temperature of the sand is what determines their sex. So if it was warmer, they would be girls, and if it was cooler, they would be boys. And I remembered it.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I still remembered it. I thought that was a sweet thing. But yeah,
that's so cool. No one taught me that.
You were there.
Maybe they did, and I just wasn't. Oh right.
You were there in the
You were
training.
literally there, you fucking idiot.
Again, different headspaces.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Anyway. Night patrols came in 4-hour shifts at either 8 p.m. or 12 midnight and consist of a group of volunteers and staff ploughing up and down the beach in wet, fly-infested sand mounds until the hallowed moment a turtle is spotted, flippering its cumbersome way up the beach to lay some eggs. I was put on patrol with our unwitting roommate Abby and Gyro, one of the local staff members. After about a million silent years of trudging through silted textured sand dunes, Gyro spotted a tortuga. Which is turtle in
Spanish
Spanish.
for turtle.
Yes.
I was trying to mix some Spanish into the blogs for that unique, authentic flavour.
He instantly handed me a pair of latex gloves and a plastic bag and shoved me forwards towards the nest with an encouraging grunt. At first, the task of bag holder watching as the turtle deposited her future offspring into the plastic sack I was holding at her rear end seemed like the most magical experience possible. It really was, wasn't it, doing that?
It was, but please read on.
However, as the time wore by, the eggs kept coming thick and fast, and my arms became less and less alive by the second. The oar was very much bleeding slowly, but surely into intense pain. Do you remember we said about Emily's arm strength? Oh.
Yeah, I don't have any. I have none. I love how, like, even this absolutely amazing thing, still I found a way to complain about it.
Only Gyro's spindly weight leaning across me to grab the full bag caused me to snap back to reality. Oh, the girl's gravity.
Oh my god, no. Come back from Eminem.
Snap back to reality. Oh my god. Snap back to reality from the pain-induced stupor, and soon we were back on the beach again. That was a very magical experience. I enjoyed that.
It was so magical, as I have written, but there's only so many turtle eggs my arms can hold, and I was like holding this plastic bag, obviously, like, so the turtles dig this hole with their back flippers, which is amazing to watch. Like, they just use their flippers and they kind of flick the sand to either side to build like a hole, and that's where they lay their eggs. But we obviously would like sneak in with our bag to catch the eggs, to like put them in a safer place, because like obviously it was mainly to get them out of the way of poachers, but it was also because often they lay them too close to the shoreline and the sea washes them away, so the sea will like wash the eggs back into the sea before they've obviously like hatched. So we were relocating them basically. But yeah, I remember like holding this bag, and I was like, at first I was like, oh, this is amazing, and then I was like, okay, this is getting quite heavy now, and then towards the end I was like, oh my god, imagine if I drop these eggs. I was literally so worried about what Gyro would say to me or think of me. I was like, oh my god, Gyro's going to think I'm an absolute idiot. Like, Gyro was just the most like loveliest, sweetest guy. He was patient, is the exact word. He was he didn't speak any English, so it was kind of all on my Spanish GCSE for us to communicate, and I tried my best, but a lot of the time he was quite silent as a result, and he was just like this silent, strong figure that was just watching me, like obviously thinking like, what an absolute noob this stupid girl is.
I don't even think he even had any shoes on, did he? He was so hardcore,
he was so cash.
Cool.
Yeah, he just knew exactly what he was doing. He was like at one with the turtles and was just like the loveliest guy. But yeah, I was really worried about. Yeah, he was strong and silent, but I was really worried about what he would think of me if I dropped all the eggs into the hole, because my arms were too weak to hold them.
Oh my god! Didn't we just learn to lie on the sandy floor just to hold our arms up instead of crouching? Yeah,
there was a technique which obviously I hadn't mastered at the time, but
not in turtle training.
No, turtle training.
Right, we have just one last little paragraph towards the end of this lovely blog. It's really taking me back, Emily. I'm so glad you wrote these.
Oh,
by the time I what is this voice?
I don't know.
The time
you really want to go with that voice? Okay.
I don't think I did it right. Let me try again. By the time I returned to the conservation centre, blistered, exhausted, aching and covered in sand at 4 a.m, a nice cosy bed was the only thing that could heal the pain. I then remembered that I had no such thing, and instead clambered in the dark under my shoddily erected mosquito net into a damp mattress crap hole. God, Emily! Wow. So ungrateful.
That's pretty mean.
Crap hole.
I know.
Oh,
crap
no.
hole is a bit intense, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't really that, was it? It was just a bed. Like, let's get real.
That had become all the more so due to the fact that the middle slat of my bed had fallen out, causing a nice dip in the mattress line for a delightful pile of sand to collect in. What tomorrow would bring, Lord only knew. Yeah, I do remember that. So you obviously had the bottom bunk, because of course I wanted the top bunk,
Bottom
and
bunks
you
for
just
life.
you had, your bed was so funny. It was like just like a V shape, a slight V shape with sand there. You were sleeping on your towel or hoodie,
Okay, so
and it was just like curled all the way up in.
So I was so mean about Rachel's pillow, as I think has come across in this blog. Like, I was really taking the piss out of it. But like during that first night when I was curled up like a little cat in a basket, and like obviously the slat like falling out had caused my mattress to like a V shape. That's exactly it. It was like dipped in the middle, and obviously all the sand on my bod had like come off in and settled into this dip. And I was just lying in it like a little golem with like just a sort of crunched up hoodie as my pillow. And I literally looked up and I could see Rachel's pillow above me through her. And I was like, I wish I had a pillow.
Which you could have had. You could have bought.
Which I could have had.
Yeah. Why did you reject that? Maybe you were like, I'm not going to carry it.
Because I'm an absolute loser. Like, it was probably a similar logic to the money bells.
Right. Okay, so that concludes the blog for this week. So we do have these segments of the best person we met. So the best person that we met.
There's such a plethora of people to choose from this particular blog about the best person we met. I honestly, it could be any of them really, because every single one of them got us out of like an unsavoury situation. But probably I guess it would have to be truck driver. Because if it wasn't for him, I honestly dread to think what would have happened to us. We'd probably still be living there on the Panama border with your pillow between us. If that guy hadn't have taken pity on us and like done us such a favour of driving us like over an hour to the conservation centre. Like if he hadn't have done that, Lord only knows. So he's going to be my number one. But shouts out also go to G-Unit T-shirt hero, Pimping Gangster Translator heroes, and Hawaiian passport control heroes. All of them played a part in getting Rachel and I safely to a conservation project that wasn't expecting us to turn up. So thanks everyone, a whole crew, a whole ensemble of useful people.
Such a weird day in my life that day.
It really, really was a weird day. Who was your best person?
I think Abby was such a sweetheart. She was about our age, from the UK, sweet, easygoing, like easy to get on with, and she was so accommodating, bless her. She had this whole like shed to herself, and then all of a sudden we bumbled on in like fools, and she just took to us, no complaints, not to our faces anyway, and she was just cool. Like I have nothing but fond memories of Abby. She was just somebody that understood what we were going through at the time, was welcoming and sweet, and we developed a lovely friendship with her. I remember that. So thank you, Abby.
Yeah, she was lovely. So now we'll talk about what lessons we learned during this blog. I'll go first? Yes, okay. Yeah, sure, why not? So I think what I learned the most is, of course, obviously before you go travelling or just in general life, you are, and obviously it's drummed into us from a young age, the stranger danger message and all of that, and like you're obviously told to be careful and blah blah blah, and everyone's trying to take advantage of you. But I mean, this day that just wasn't our experience. Like every single person we met helped us in some way and was kind to us in some way, and I think like mostly people have good intentions and they do want to help people out, and that is something that I've seen to be true on other bits of travelling I've done. Probably you've seen it to be true during your time in Thailand, would you say?
Oh, definitely. People in Thailand are really keen to help out, and they are also in Thailand. If you speak like even just a single word of Thai, they're so excited that you can converse in their language, which is incredibly embarrassing when you think about it. How well they can speak English in comparison to the small bit of their language that you know. But yeah, they are always wanting to accommodate. Yeah, absolutely. They're so friendly.
Yeah, so I think that's what I learnt. Probably that's my biggest lesson. What was your lesson, Rachel?
Having a good pillow is always a good investment. Always. Trust your pillow. Having a good night's sleep is important.
No, you're
just
completely
knowing
right.
that. Yeah, like a comfort, like a home comfort can be, sometimes sentimental. You spoke about your shows that you brought over. For me, it was just knowing that I had something to lie my head on and just feel really happy in that. And that gave me so much happiness and comfort. And I remember a friend saying to me, there is no better place to sleep in the world than your own bed at home. And so just to take part of that with you, it just makes you feel more settled into your environment. So even though it's a bit of a light-hearted one, there is something a little deeper in there. And I would say, as just a sneaky second one, is trusting the journey and trusting that you'll get there, you'll get to your destination. Where there's a will, there's a way, as I learnt from Donkey from Shrek. Not even kidding.
There's a will, there's a kindly man in a G Unit t-shirt ready to help you out.
There's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh my goodness. So this concludes episode 3 of our blog podcast. Thank you very much, listeners, for tuning in to listen to our times and our adventures. If you would like more of this podcast goodness, then come over to our Instagram page, which is Gap Year Diaries Podcast. You can follow, subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. And don't forget to leave us 5 stars. It would be lovely. Maybe a little review. We like reading things. I like to read. Emily, do you like to read?
We like to read reviews about our own selves.
Yeah,
please leave us a review. Constructive criticism also welcome.
Yeah.
Anything you want to leave. Yeah, I mean, I feel inclined to ask for 5 stars, but I also feel like it kind of renders the whole review system somewhat defunct, but by all means, no, please do give us 5 stars, please.
Yeah, it will be lovely. And so next week you shall be tuning on in to stories about Gandoca, further turtle adventures, who else we met, and the ridiculous scenarios that we got ourselves into. So I'm excited about that, Emily. I'm excited about the next blog.
Are you?
Yeah,
me too. It's a good one. I think the next blog it kind of like puts a few days into one. I think it's one of those bumper blogs.
Yeah.
Which is exciting.
Like an old video case.
like a good old, like when you used to buy Friends series on VHS. Yes, it's absolutely nothing like that. But yeah, it's going to be fun to relive these times in Gandoca, because we had such an adventure. No, we had such a lovely time there. And yeah, I'm excited to just sort of journey back.
Yeah, me too. I'm game. Well, thank you, listeners, and see you next week. Emily, love you.
See you next week. Love you too. Love you, listeners.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.